Muy buenas tardes a todos. Les damos las gracias a nombre del Instituto Jalisciense de Tecnologías de la Información y JALTI por estar presentes en este webinar que hemos preparado para ustedes, que creemos va a ser de gran interés para todos y para sus empresas. Antes de comenzar, queremos comentarles simplemente algunos puntos importantes. Mantener sus micrófonos cerrados para evitar distracciones. También que nos puedan, si tienen interés en hacer alguna pregunta, pueden escribirla en el chat. Al final de la presentación se van a leer. Como se anunció antes, esta presentación se hará en inglés, pero no tienen que escribir forzosamente sus preguntas en inglés. Pueden hacerlas si gustan en español. Al final tendremos apoyo para hacerle la traducción a nuestra expositora. Entonces, también para quienes no conozcan a IJALTI, sí me gustaría decirles muy brevemente que somos una organización sin fines de lucro, cuyo objetivo principal es fomentar e impulsar el uso, desarrollo y aprovechamiento de las tecnologías de la información y comunicación, así como el crecimiento del sector. Esta plática que estamos dando hoy es parte de nuestra misión. Hacemos este tipo de eventos constantemente, pues con temas relevantes que consideramos importantes que se conozcan tanto para las empresas como para el público en general. Y ya para entrar en materia con la presentación, me gustaría platicarles muy brevemente sobre Tanya Davis. Ella es la expositora que nos acompaña en esta ocasión. Ella es la CEO de PELMO. Ella ha estado trabajando en el campo de la enseñanza y el entrenamiento del idioma inglés para adultos durante más de 24 años. Tiene una maestría en educación con una especialización en la enseñanza del inglés como lengua extranjera y ha trabajado en varios países como Japón, Tailandia, Estados Unidos y Canadá. Su vasta experiencia laboral la ha puesto en estrecho contacto con estudiantes de más de 60 países. Pasó 10 años en la prestigiosa Universidad de California en San Diego como entrenadora de maestros y luego como directora asociada de programas internacionales. Más tarde regresó a Canadá para convertirse en directora de programas de ESL en la Universidad Memorial de Terranova, que es una de las más grandes de Canadá. Ella es experta en la adquisición y pruebas de idioma inglés para adultos y tiene la firme creencia de que las pruebas no tienen por qué ser estresantes, lentas o costosas. También afirma que los informes de pruebas pueden proporcionar más orientación con respecto al nivel del dominio del idioma inglés en comparación a otros casos. Y por esta razón fue que fundó PELMO for Business, que es una división de PELMO International. Entonces, sin más preámbulo, los voy a dejar ya con Tanya. Tanya, hello, welcome to this presentation. I give you the microphone.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm really, really happy to see you here with me this evening. And I'm really excited to tell you about PELMO for Business and how it can support your hiring efforts to find and secure the best global talent to grow your business and to grow your team. But before we jump right into it, I would like to show you a short video. It's only about 2 minutes, but it does give you a good overview of what PELMO for Business is, what it is that we do to help support companies. So short video first, and then we'll jump into the details a bit more. hope you enjoyed that. If you've never used Doodly before, that's the software that I used. It's really quite easy, and I find it a fun and engaging way of sending a message rather than just writing it in text. Something like this only took me about 2 hours to put together, and it's fairly inexpensive. So if you've never used it and you liked what you just saw, then you might want to consider using it in some of your messaging for your company. And I do not have any stakes in Doodly, so don't think that I'm encouraging you to do it so that I make money off them. I don't. Okay, so what we're really talking about today is not only assessing English language skills for, in order to secure best talent for your companies and to know where to position them the best within your company, but what it feels like to demonstrate your other language skills. So if you've ever been in a situation where you had to speak in your second or third language and you had to speak formally, which you were being assessed, you probably felt pretty stressed, right? It's never a relaxing experience when you know that you're being evaluated. But PELMO for Business, we really, really try to make the experience one that's at least very low stress, if not possibly enjoyable, with an online assessment that is short, takes less than an hour. And certainly in that situation, the candidate is alone, they're doing the test, they don't have anybody watching them and assessing them in real time, like what could happen in the picture that you're seeing here now in the interview. That is a highly stressful situation. So when you're trying to assess during an interview, you're probably not going to get the best demonstration of language skills from the applicant just because they're so nervous. I moved to Japan when I was just graduated from university. I spoke no Japanese, and I went over there to teach English and to work at a couple of different universities to develop their programming. And I had to learn Japanese. And when I was interviewing for jobs after I was there for 5 or 6 years, I would have to do those sometimes in Japanese. And I know how that felt. It was awful. I felt so unsure of myself, but yet I knew I could do the job that they needed me to do. But because, their primary language is Japanese, and most of the HR people I talked to spoke only in Japanese, that's how the interview had to go. So it was very stressful. I was successful. I was able to move forward most of the time with the jobs that I wanted, but it wasn't a fun experience. I would have rather to have a test I could have taken and for them to have seen the results and understood more about what I could do in Japanese and what I couldn't do, so they knew where I wouldn't be secure. For example, interviewing other people, that's not something I could do very well in Japanese. So what we're going to talk about today is how PELMO for Business really supports you as a company to hire the best talent if they happen to be non-native speakers of English, and how to best support them so that stressful situation doesn't happen on either side, right? Okay, so these are some really interesting statistics. I looked at a ton of different websites and blogs, hiring websites about, about how many days it takes to acquire a new hire, and how often does the applicant change their mind, and how many times on average do you have to offer a job before it's actually taken? And here is the average of all of the numbers that I saw. So I'll be curious at the end of the webinar for you to tell me if these match up. So 27 was the number of days that it took on average to acquire a new hire. Now, personally for me, it's been a lot longer than that when I'm looking for people and I'm hiring for my company. So I'd be interested to know from any of you if that number sounds right to you. 53% of people changing their mind because of a different offer. For me, that's about right. I'm guessing about half the job offers that I make that I'll actually get a positive response. And finally, 2.5 times the number of times you have to make the offer. That kind of goes with the 53%, right? So you're probably offering it a second time or a third time. So in the hiring world, these are the type of statistics we're looking at. We're looking at a lot of time, 27 plus days in many cases, a lot of energy in interviewing and finding out about applicants, and then finally hoping you get the right person. So what we did at PELMO International is we decided that it would be really, really helpful for companies if there was a hiring intelligence tool to evaluate English language skills. And so that's what we did. We recognized through talking to many businesses in Canada, in the United States, in Brazil, in Japan, that most businesses don't know how to accurately assess English language skills of non-native English speakers. And why should they, right? If they're not trained in that area. So we created a very simple testing reporting framework that can help businesses understand much more about an applicant's English language skills so that they can make a confident hiring decision. And most importantly, secure the best talent for their business. So I want to tell you just a little short story about two companies. Okay, we'll call it a tale of two companies. All right. So company A is this big engineering firm. They're very well known, well established, and they are looking to hire a new software engineer. And they want somebody who really understands virtual reality because they're not going to add that into their company profile. And this is company B. Company B is also an engineering firm. They're smaller, they're just starting out, but they're also looking for somebody who is familiar with the use of VR in their work. And this is Eduardo. And Eduardo is the perfect candidate because he is educated, he has experience using virtual reality, and right now, he's feeling like he's outgrown his current job. So he wants to find something more challenging. So company A reaches out to Eduardo for an interview, and they talk to him on the phone and ask him to come in next week. And also they ask him for an English language score. They say preferably TOEFL. He doesn't have that. And the last time he did a TOEFL test was over 6 years ago. So the HR person at company A says, okay, we'll look into it. We'll see if we can find when the next test date is. At the same time, company B also calls Eduardo and arranges an interview for the following week. And while they're talking to him though, they ask him, what are your English language skills? Can you speak English? And Eduardo says, well, yes, I studied in high school and I studied at university. And they say, great. Would you be able to take this 1 hour online English language assessment in the next day or two? And Eduardo says, sure, of course, why not? So Eduardo does the test and a very comprehensive English language report is sent to company B. They are thrilled by the information that they get about his strengths and weaknesses in English, about what recommendations on how Eduardo can even improve his English language skills, and some special notes to the employer. They're so happy that in the interview, they offer Eduardo the job. And he says, yes. Now, company A is not so happy because Eduardo, of course, contacted them and said, no longer interested. I already got a good offer. I'm happy. The head of HR here, she has a lot of pressure on her because the head of the department now wants her to find a replacement for Eduardo, and soon, because they thought they had a perfect candidate. In fact, they did. They lost him. And they realized that that lack of information about his English language skills slowed things down, right? On the other hand, the head of HR in company B, she's being complimented by everybody in her company for landing such a great hire. And they understand that having that information so quickly about the candidate's English language skills, because English is important for this position, this is what allowed them to make the choice so quickly and to secure the best talent. So which company do you think wins the race, right? I think it's pretty easy to see. So company A is asking a candidate to spend over $300, spend over 3.5 hours of their time to take a test, wait weeks, over a month for the result, and then the company gets a score that they don't really understand what it means, and is likely to lose the candidate to another company. Whereas company B immediately provides an online test that the candidate can take and they don't have to pay for. The company receives the test results within 48 hours, often the same day. They get all the detailed information they need about Eduardo's English language skills. They make an offer and good to go. So the problem is time-consuming English language tests, right? That don't provide enough information to really have a very good sense of whether or not the applicant can perform in their position, in the way that they need English. So their skills on one hand, for example, how great an engineer they are, that's one side. But if English is required for whatever reason, whether it's writing emails, doing presentations, talking to clients overseas, whatever that piece is, that's what you need to know in order to make a solid hiring decision, unless you want to risk finding out a few months later that old IELTS score or TOEFL score didn't really help you and the candidate doesn't have the skills that they need. And now you have to find a way for training or rehiring or something to solve your problem. And you really shouldn't be expected to accurately assess the applicant's English language skills. That's not what most business leaders, HR people, that's not what they're trained to do. You're trained to do completely different things in an interview. Language assessment is usually, in my experience, not one of them. So the reporting that PELMO for Business provides is really unlike anything else that you're going to see, I think, ever, because we're just going to continue improving as well. But currently, there's no report like this out there. An explanation of what the score means, first of all. Then the candidate's English language skills, strengths, and weaknesses are spelled out really clearly. Then there are recommendations to the candidate on how they can make improvements. And this means make improvements on their own. So it doesn't mean go to an English language school for 5 months and do this. They are things that they can do themselves. And finally, suggestions to the employer about how to avoid linguistic and cultural stumbling blocks for maximum communication success. This is really important, especially if the candidate is not of the same culture as the employer, because language is culture, right? They're tied in together. So if culture is different, language is different, there are a lot of possibilities for miscommunication, even when grammar is correct and vocabulary is correct. Intonation can be a really serious problem. In fact, I wrote an article on that on the website that you can get if you go to the website later. And now I do have a sample. Let's see if I can get this here. A sample report to show you. Actually, there we go. Okay, so this is a real report from a partner, a client I have in Mexico, from December. Of course, the name of the company and the name of the applicant are changed. So you see first, there's recommendations for successful communication. Sorry, it's really small, it's going to be hard to read, but I'm happy to send you these sample reports so you can look at them and read them thoroughly after the webinar. Here we have the English language score. It's out of 100, very simple. Okay, it's not out of some 8 or 9 band levels or 120, or it's just out of 100, very straightforward. This
Tanya,
is excellent. Yes?
excuse me, but we are still seeing the presentation.
Oh,
So,
you can't see the report?
no. Well, we could see it, but I think you need to like change windows or something.
Oh, I thought that that's shared at the same time. I'm sorry, let me try this. Hold on. New share. Okay. Here we go. Now, can you see it?
Yes, there it is.
You got it
Yes.
now? Okay. I apologize, everyone. So sorry about that.
Don't worry.
Okay, so here we are. So back to the beginning. Again, not the correct name or person's name, but this did happen in December. So the recommendations for successful communication, the English language score out of 100, and what that 59 means is explained over here. I'm going to read that out to you a little bit, just so I know it's hard to see. The employee can communicate about a variety of topics, can communicate with native speakers with a degree of spontaneity, can briefly give reasons, has enough language, structure, and vocabulary to operate in everyday situations. There may be many inaccuracies and misunderstandings. Okay, so it's just a general description of what that 59 means. And then there's the recommendations to the employee. So there are 3 particular things here that are suggestions for the employee to work on by him or herself. Okay, so one has to do with increasing vocabulary before meetings so they're more prepared. The second one is about writing on a different topic every day for just 20 minutes. That's all, because when you do that in a foreign language, that's when you run into realizing you don't have the vocabulary for these different words, then you look them up, but you're actively using them. And the third one is the pronunciation issue of the yes sound and the j sound, which often happens with Spanish speakers. And manner and place of articulation is actually described there. So it describes what the applicant should practice doing with their mouth to make the correct sound. So this is basically what a report looks like. It's very thorough. Definitely more information than you're going to get from any other English language test. So let me go back. Okay. All right, there we go, perfect. Okay, and the report, and this is important, is always ready in less than 48 hours, and often it's the same day. So how do you know that this test is good? How do you know that it's reliable, that it's giving you the information you need? Well, there are very detailed rubrics that describe each level, and these rubrics are followed by highly educated and experienced English language assessors. And the reports are clearly aligned with other testing benchmarks. So for example, the CLB, CFR, Cambridge, TOEFL, IELTS, they're all aligned. So you can have total faith that the test is authentic. So what is the primary reason you would use PELMO for Business? Well, the main reason would be to avoid losing a candidate to another company, of course, due to having to wait so long to figure out what their English language skills are based on a very, very late English test score. Choosing the wrong candidate because the score that you have on their IELTS test really didn't tell you anything about how well they're going to communicate in a meeting with your clients in the UK. The cost of rehiring, of course, you want to avoid this at all costs. It's expensive. Like we said, we use that 27 days as an example. It's a lot of time and energy spent into trying to rehire for a position. And finally, feeling uncertain. That uncertain feeling that you have about making a decision that's so important. Nobody wants that, right? You always want to feel confident that you're making a good decision, especially when the decision is asking someone to join your company's team, right? That cultural fit is very, very important. And cultural fit doesn't necessarily mean that the person is of a different culture. It's simply that everybody gets along, that they can communicate well. And if communication in English is required at all, that cultural fit also involves your clients and your partners who are English speakers. So you want to make sure that that fits in well too. And you don't want to feel uncertain about that. So you're using PELMO for business, then it will really enforce a feeling of confidence and satisfaction in your decision making. Definitely feel reduced risk for sure. And a better understanding of not just the English language skills of the applicant as they stand now, but how to best position them in their job in your company to maximize their potential and what they can do. Our reporting guarantee is incredibly simple and straightforward. We just guarantee that every report will provide you with the substantial information of the candidate's English language skills that you need to make the best decision. And we do. When you get these reports, you never have to worry again. You never have to experience losing a desired applicant to a competitor because of English language ability and the lack of knowledge, needing 3+ months to discover whether or not the candidate's English language skills are good enough to perform in their job as needed. And probably worst of all, not knowing how to help that employee. So once you figure out that the employee doesn't really speak English in the way that they need to for their job, what do? You send them off to an English language school nearby, or, that takes time and money too, right? So the report helps you with that. If you just follow the recommendations in the report, then you have a guide, you have a plan going forward. So the process involved with adding the PELMO for business assessment to your hiring process is very, very, very easy. So step 1, make an appointment to talk to me. Then you'll receive a free trial test. Give that test to a current applicant or a candidate if you can, if you have that situation. If not, bribe, blackmail one of your employees to take it, who's a non-native speaker of English, of course. Then you receive the detailed test report from my company. You are utterly thrilled and happy with the results, so you purchase tests. Then you end up with having a competitive advantage in your hiring process moving forward. And here's the fun part for me. Most people hate talking about money. I love talking about money because this is very inexpensive and people are usually very surprised by this point. So one report is $159 Canadian. In American, it's like currently what? Probably 140 Canadian, American. But for the company cluster with eHealthy, it's discounted to $139. In addition to that, if any company purchases 20 tests or more, we'll also take 10% off of the 139. So it's less than half, almost 1/3 of the cost of TOEFL or IELTS. Plus, you end up getting a complete report of the English language skills, not just a number. Now, it's hard to talk about testing and not talk about training to some degree. So I will give you a little bit of information about this, but if any companies want to talk about English language training for any specific employees, then please contact me and we'll talk about your needs. But what we do offer is one-on-one virtual English language lessons. They're not group lessons, it's only one-on-one. Because the lessons are practical and customized. They have to be. So each of your employees that are required to speak some level of English have a certain responsibility, right? So whether it's writing emails, talking on the phone, leading a business meeting, whatever it is they have to do, that's what we're going to focus on. My English language instructors will be completely focused on making sure that person does that well. If it's a presentation, they're going to do that well. And the instructors I use are truly very, very highly educated and knowledgeable. And the reason is because 80% of the ESL schools in Canada are now closed because of the pandemic. So I have access to the best of the best English language instructors across the country. And I have about a dozen of them right now on contract. And they love this. They love doing this type of training. The scheduling is pretty flexible. The one-on-one sessions, which usually run only about 30 to 45 minutes, can happen on weekends and in the evenings. But again, it's really important to note that this is not necessary, right? The report that you get really does recommend for the employee to take on responsibility and to do things themselves to improve their language skills. The companies that hire us for the training, usually they have a really specific task, like they have a new hire who has to do a presentation 3 months from now in English, to this, to a multicultural group, and they need help with that. So we help. So they're usually really like time sensitive tasks. It doesn't have to be, that's just usually what it is. So we're just about finished, and thank heavens I still have power. So just a very few final thoughts from me before I would be really happy to answer questions from you all. With the right tools, just remember that you really can decide a candidate's English language skills. You can know whether or not they're good enough. And you'll know this information before your competitors, right, with this type of testing. And you will then make the best decision about how to help grow your team of talent and grow your business, at least with regards to those positions that require some amount of English language, which I'm learning are increasing more and more. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking for a second at least, and I will be happy to take any questions. I know Alejandro said before that you can write them in Spanish in the chat box, and he or Alberto will translate, I believe.
Maybe we could start with a couple of questions that I kind of noticed here in this webinar. I don't know if you can see the chat, but I'm going to read them to you. First one is, can a company request a customized test to be created for them?
Very good question. Absolutely. Yes, they can. So we've done this actually for one IT group already. They wanted some specific questions asked, and we said, sure. But just to be clear, we are assessing the English language skills only. We're not trying to figure out if they answered the question, well enough for the department or whatnot. But they just wanted certain questions asked, so we developed that for them. And yes, yeah, we can absolutely do that. It costs a little bit, but it only takes about 10 days typically to have a brand new test ready and available for a company to use. So yeah. And if you have a company where you hire a lot of people in similar roles, it kind of makes sense to have a test like that for yourself.
That's great. Also, and the follow-up question here is, well, how many different types of assessment questions are there?
So without customizing new tests, there's a special one for IT that is general, and we provide to any IT department who wants to use it. there's a general assessment that any company can use, including IT. There's one specifically to test for bilingualism. We're finding a lot of companies are wanting not just to know a level of English, they want to know if they're actually at the level of being bilingual. So that test is slightly longer and a little bit more difficult, as it would need to be. And there's one for healthcare that we've just developed for a company in Eastern United States. Yeah, so that's what we have so far.
I have a question here. We have another one. Are all skills tested?
Yes, so speaking, listening, reading, and writing are tested. And that's a really good question. And to that, I'm going to talk about the structure of the test just a tiny bit. There are no multiple choice. There are no fill in the blank. All of the question types are practical and real. So by that, I mean the test taker would listen to an authentic, for example, a TED Talk. We use TED Talks a lot. Would listen to a 10-minute TED Talk or watch the TED Talk. And then they would have to respond to a question. There's always a choice of questions. Choice of questions is really important, I think, in allowing the test taker to really demonstrate their language skills. They have some choice, they feel like they're more in control and more competent, and so more likely to demonstrate their language skills better. So they listen to a TED Talk, and then they have 3 questions. They have 90 seconds to prepare, and then they have 2 minutes to record verbally. They answer the question verbally. In another case, they read something, they read an article, and then they have 3 questions. They have to write a response to the article. So it's real application of English. We do not rely on multiple choice. And so this is how we put the skills together in testing them.
I have another question here. If you can talk a little bit about your experience with companies or clients outside your country or Canada.
Actually, most of my clients are outside of Canada. They started in Canada. They started very locally, actually. I don't know if you're familiar with Verifin. It's a company here. They're an anti-fraud, anti-theft company here, right here in Newfoundland. NASDAQ bought them last month for $76 billion. Kind of put Newfoundland on the map. People now know where we are. So they're a client. I'll be helping them this year with their hiring. MISA, a local company. But then I started talking to companies outside of Canada, outside of North America, and discovered there's a far bigger need than I realized. So we're working with, currently negotiating a contract with 2 companies in Japan, 1 company in Brazil, and I already have a client that I'm actively working with in Mexico now. So right now, those seem to be the areas that's taking up most of our focus. That doesn't mean we're going to stop there. I think there's going to be a lot more interest in other parts of Latin America, and I look forward to working with other countries like that. But mostly, of course, I want to work with the companies and be healthy.
I don't know, Albert, if you have another question there.
Actually, Leticia asked something. She wants to know how long does the test last?
Oh, it's less than an hour. Less than an hour. The test for the bilingual speakers is a little bit longer. I think it's 70 minutes, but the other tests are less than 1 hour. So about 50 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, also out of curiosity, Can someone cheat on a test?
Yeah, great question. No, they can't. They can't. I mean, when the pandemic hit, of course, most schools did go online, and the first big question was, oh, what about cheating? What about cheating? So yeah, there is definitely a possibility for cheating when it's a knowledge-based test, but a skills-based test like language, how can you possibly cheat? So if you're speaking, I see you, you're speaking, it's you because it's a video of you. And at the very beginning of the test, credentials, biometrics are taken virtually. So your picture is taken, then you show an ID, a federal ID, usually your passport, but if not, then a driver's license or something so that we know it's you. And it's really basically impossible to cheat. There is AI technology in part of the testing platform, and it will flag instances in the test if, for example, someone comes into the room when you're testing, it'll flag that, or if you leave the computer when you're testing, it'll flag that. So when I get the report, all of these pictures of possibly non-compliant behavior has been flagged. And basically I use that to assess whether or not the person was trying to do something to cheat, although like I said, I really don't know what. I haven't had a problem. It's really important not to just use that AI technology and not review it, because so someone can come into the room, but that someone could be your 3-year-old daughter, right? And she's not helping you cheat or telling you answers or telling you, how to pronounce something, right? So it is really quite impossible to cheat. And honestly, I haven't had anybody try. Nothing. There hasn't been anything that would indicate someone was looking up a word in a dictionary or something when because it's so on the spot, right? You're listening to something, then you have 90 seconds to prepare an answer. In 90 seconds, what can you possibly do, right? I mean, you can only express what you know with the skills that you have. So it's a very safe test in that regard.
Thank you. That's very good to know. I don't know if someone else.
Yeah, don't be shy. I still have power. So yeah, I'm thrilled that we made it this far. I would like to ask the question that I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. I would love to hear of any particular challenges that anyone has experienced or is experiencing with regards to English language proficiency skills and assessing that on applicants. If anyone would like to tell me about that, I would love to hear about that. And you can write it in Spanish and make Alberto translate it.
Or if you want to speak in English, you can open your microphones and do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you directly. That would be lovely, actually.
Vaya bien en su entrevista. O sea, inclusive les mandamos una lista con los tips de
Was that a question? I don't think I could hear her.
Yes, I think we lost her.
Oh.
There's a question here about payments in Made in Canada. Are payments made in Canada?
Are the payments made in Canada? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, my question is that if we would like to buy some exams, that means that we need to transfer and make a transfer directly to a bank in Canada or the school or bank account, or would that be, or it can be made here in Mexico?
So there are two ways. You can transfer the money, or you can buy them via a credit card or PayPal. The cheapest way typically is to transfer the money, but you can use credit card as well.
Okay, thank you. And in case, let's say that I know 2-3 people who are interested, they are not being hired by a company yet. So, and in case they are interested in getting the exam, can they do it individually, or this is only for companies?
Oh, absolutely not. Yes, they can do it. Yes, they can do it individually. That's a great question. I've only recently come across people asking me this. People asking, could they take the test in order to use it as part of their application for work? And it's the company in Japan that I'm working with that asked me that. And I thought, oh, wow, yes, of course you can. So they would just need to send me an email so I could direct them to the right place on the website to purchase the test. It's very easy.
Okay, thank you. Yes, because as you were saying, taking a test or an examination or something like such as IELTS or TOEFL, it would take longer to get the certificate and all that. So that is why I was wondering about these question.
Yeah, no, absolutely they can, yes. The reason why I'd like them to contact me first is because we also have tests for post-secondary admission into university, into North America. And that test is more expensive and it's a completely different test. I would not want him to make the mistake of purchasing the wrong test.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see if I understood correctly. So you are the person to be to get in touch so that the exams can be bought, right?
Correct.
And
Yes.
I believe that they come into your email inbox, right? So this is how you get them, and then you once the exam is over, you submit it, and 2 or 3 days later, or less than 48 hours, you'll get the result. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just another question. You also mentioned that the exams are aligned to the different examinations, such as Cambridge, etc. But do you get like the same result as they do, for example, in the Council of Europe, like A or B or C or level C1 or C2? Or, yes.
Yep, it's also aligned to those. Yes.
Okay.
If you go to the PELMO website,
Mm-hmm.
the general website or the business website, that's just a drop down at the top, you'll see the detailed benchmark descriptions and how they align across with like A1, B2, all the way up, and then with IELTS and TOEFL and CFR and CLB. Yeah, I think they're all, just about all of them are there.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's quite interesting and good to know that there is another possibility. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. That was a really good question about the individuals being able to buy the test. So yeah, I'm really glad that was asked.
So I don't know if there's another question or not. We can wrap it up right now. And of course, como les decíamos al principio también, si pueden contactar a Tanya directamente, ahí está su correo electrónico y su página web. Si necesitan apoyo también en el IJALTI, podemos ayudarlos. Ahí está el correo de Alberto Cocker. Él también se pueden acercar con nosotros si tienen alguna necesidad específica, y nosotros podemos ayudarlos, ¿no? a revisarla y ver con Tanya cómo se puede resolver, ¿no? Y ayudarlos también en ese proceso desde el IJALTI. Entonces también con toda confianza se pueden contactar con nosotros. Y si no hay nada más, thank you very much, Tanya, for your time in sharing this
Very happy.
information. Muchas gracias a todos por haberse conectado con nosotros. Los invitamos a que nos sigan en todas nuestras redes sociales del IJALTI. Nos buscan así tal cual como IJALTI. Ahí tenemos constantemente información de eventos, de servicios de este tipo, oportunidades de crecimiento para las empresas. Entonces está la invitación ahí para que nos sigan, por favor. Y pues muchas gracias a todos y seguimos en contacto. Gracias. Gracias,
Thank you,
Tanya.
everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you.